Hello, I'm Dr. Hans Doormalen. Welcome to Hans Doormalen Presents Fun with Philosophy. Today our guest is the Scottish philosopher David Hume. He's going to explain when we say that two events, A and B, are related to each other as cause and effect. That's going to be fun.
This is David Hume. He lives in Edinburgh, the Athens of the North, on St. David Street. He likes his cat. He likes to cook sheephead soup. He likes to shoot pool. And he hates skepticism. Before we turn to shooting pool, let me stress that the notion of causality is an important one. Why is that? Because when we think about the world, about the matters of fact, we always do that in terms of cause and effect. For instance, we think that a plague caused people to get sick and even die. We think we know this. And if people get sick, and we do not know why, we try to find out what the cause of this illness is. So, if we want to have knowledge about the events taking place in the world, we need to be able to have knowledge about causal relations in the world. For if we always think about those events in terms of cause and effect, and we cannot ever know that event B was caused by event A, then we cannot ever have knowledge about the matters of fact, and hence we need to accept skepticism. In order to establish whether we can have knowledge about causal relations, we need to know what we mean by our concept of causality. When do we say that event A is the cause of event B? I think we classify events A and B as cause and effect if three conditions are met. The first condition is that of priority. This means that event A has to occur before event B to be able to be the cause of event B. If the collision of pool ball 4 with pool ball 10 occurred after the rolling of pool ball 10, then that collision was not the cause of the rolling of pool ball 10. The second condition is that of contiguity. This means that event A has to occur near event B in time and place to be able to be the cause of event B. If pool ball 4 collides with pool ball 10 in Edinburgh, and in Inverness a pool ball with number 8 starts rolling, immediately after that, we do not say that this collision was the cause of the rolling of pool ball 8. Similarly, if the rolling of this pool ball 10 here occurs 5 hours after the collision, we also do not say that this collision caused that rolling. Satisfying these two conditions is not enough. Imagine a fly landing on pool ball number 13. If this pool ball starts rolling, then the conditions of priority and contiguity have been met. But still, we would not say that the fly landing on the pool ball caused the rolling of this ball. This would be a coincidence. Clearly, there was another cause of this rolling of pool ball 13. So we need to add another condition. The third condition, thus, is that it is no coincidence that event B occurred after event A, but that there has to be a necessary relation between event A and event B. If pool ball 4 collides with pool ball 10, then it's no accident that pool ball 10 rolls away. That had to occur. It had to be necessary. Now I have a problem. I am an empiricist, which means that I believe that I can only have knowledge about facts I can observe. So I can have knowledge that the first and the second condition are met. I can see that the collision of pool ball 4 occurs prior to the rolling of pool ball 10. And I can also observe that the collision occurs in time and place near the rolling away of pool ball 10. So far, so good. The problem resides in the last condition. Have you ever observed necessity? Have you ever observed a necessary relation between two events? I haven't. You cannot observe that. This means I cannot have knowledge of necessary relations, and that implies I cannot have knowledge of causal relations either. And if we can only have knowledge of the matters of fact of the world, if we can have knowledge of causal relations, then we cannot have knowledge at all. And that would mean that we have to become skeptics. I might, however, have a way to avoid this conclusion, but I will tell you about that later.
Wasn't that fun? Someone, not you, might think, well, why doesn't Hume embrace rationalism instead of skepticism? But of course, prior to Hume, there was René Descartes, who was a rationalist, and John Locke, who was an empiricist, and Locke already had shown that rationalism was not a tenable position. But you already knew that, right? So, Hume has promised us to explain how we might avoid the skeptical conclusion. So let's see how he does that in the next episode of the Tony and Ronnie Talk Philosophy Talk Show.
This is Tony. This is Ronnie. This is the Tony and Ronnie Talk Philosophy Talk Show. In a show.
Well, welcome one and all to the Tony and Ronnie Talk Philosophy Talk Show. We're live from Railroad Park in Tilburg City. With us today is the leading philosopher of the Scottish Enlightenment, David Hume. Welcome. So glad you could join us. The pleasure is all mine. We were wondering what your way out is of the skeptical conclusion you seem to be forced to accept. We are indeed, but to start, could you summarize the problem for our viewers and me? Of course, the problem is the following. To have knowledge of the facts, we need to be able to have knowledge of causes. But since we cannot have knowledge of necessary relations, which is needed to have knowledge of causes, we cannot have knowledge of any fact. I get it. So that's the same thing as saying, I'm a skeptic. That's right. Unless, of course, you have a way out. That is right as well. So, tell us about the way out. I can do that, but I have thought about it, and it turns out not to be a way out after all. I would like to be able to justify knowledge in an empiricist way, but it turns out that it is not possible. You can't always get what you want. Okay. So, Mr. Hume, could you tell us the not working solution anyway? Of course. It was quite an easy solution. So the problem was that we cannot have knowledge of facts, because we cannot have knowledge of causes, because we cannot have knowledge of necessary relations, because we cannot observe necessary relations. I'm with you. Now, what happens when we see a constant conjunction of two events satisfying the conditions of priority and contiguity? Constant conjunction? Two events A and B, say the collision of two pool balls and the rolling away of the pool ball that is bumped into, go together, that is what conjunction means, all the time. That is what constant means. So if this happens without exception, what then do we do? Well, you tell me. Then we conclude that this has to be a causal relation. So if pool ball 4 collides with pool ball 10 and pool ball 10 rolls away, we conclude that the collision causes the rolling of pool ball 10. That is what I'm saying. That is how the human mind works. And that means that we conclude that it's a necessary relation? Obviously, because a causal relation is a necessary relation. And that is also why, unfortunately, this doesn't work. If we see a constant conjunction and we conclude that we are dealing with a causal relation, it is necessary and thus will, under similar circumstances, always happen. And that is a problem. Why? Well, because this is inductive reasoning, and that's logically not valid. Just because you have seen some collisions of the first pool ball colliding with the second that were followed by the rolling of the second pool ball, this does not mean that you know that it will always happen. Causal reasoning is inductive reasoning. Well, Mr. Hume, that's too bad. For now you have to accept skepticism. I know. But thank you anyway. You're welcome. I guess I'm leaving. I think I will go home and have a walk on Carlton Hill. Oh, you're leaving? Good. Take that cat with you, for that is one smelly cat. What are they feeding you? Now, what do you make of that, Ronnie? Isn't that something? Indeed. So our guest started as an empiricist, thinking he could justify beliefs using observation, but that turned out not to work. And now he's a skeptic. What was interesting though is that he says we are induction machines. We cannot help ourselves in thinking that if we observe a constant conjunction of events that satisfy the conditions of priority and contiguity, that we then automatically, without thinking, conclude that these events are related as cause and effect. This lady being a perfect example. She sees a cat and observes a distinct smell. The cat comes and goes, and she observes the smell constantly when the cat came her way. She concludes that the cat causes the smell. But she cannot be sure that it's the cat that is so smelly. It could always be a coincidence. That's right. That is the classic problem of induction. But it is the way our minds work. That cat smelled badly though. Aye, it did. According to Hume, we are induction machines. I wonder, why are we induction machines? If induction is logically invalid, why do we use it? Could it be because it works so well? In past cases, using induction to find a general rule and then using deduction to predict a future event was followed by the success of the prediction, and therefore, without thinking, we assume that in the future induction will also work. Or is there another explanation? Sapere aude. According to Hume, we are induction machines. I wonder, why are we induction machines? If induction is logically invalid, why do we use it? Could it be because it works so well? In past cases, using induction to find a general rule and then using deduction to predict a future event was followed by the success of the prediction, and therefore, without thinking, we assume that in the future induction will also work. Or is there another explanation? Sapere aude.
Wasn't that fun? Well, that's it for today's episode. Stay safe.